All right, everybody. So I've been trying to land a king salmon from my kayak for the past, I would say, month or so. And in this shot here on this first slide, I was really close. I was really close to this king salmon. You're gonna have to watch the video to see what happens. But what I realized is that there may not be all the information out there for beginner kayakers on how to actually land and even fish for king salmon. So I've got a few lessons learned that I wanted to share with you guys, and hopefully it'll help you guys land some salmon. So what you guys will learn, there's going to be some types of lures, pros and cons based on my own experience. I have a little table that I'll show you guys in terms of my catch analysis on each type of these lures. So I'll show you what I caught on them, success rate, how many times I went out and tried these type of lures. And then I'll just briefly go into like where to find the salmon, what's the process in terms of, hooking up with a salmon, fighting it. And then finally, I'll end up with some lessons learned. So stay tuned with that. I'm going to weave in some clips so you can actually see me trying and learning on how to salmon fish. So let's get started, guys. Salmon is one of the hardest fish to land on a kayak. Reason being is that you're not on a real stable surface, right? Like you're going to be using one hand to lift the salmon up, another hand coming with a net underneath. It's just everything needs to be right in order for you to land the salmon on a kayak. I haven't landed a salmon on a kayak yet, so spoiler alert, but I have fished for them before on charter boats and was able to get them. So the other thing about salmon is that they only start coming in close to shore where it's reachable from kayaks starting in like July, I would say. The other thing that makes it a little more challenging is that you have to use barbless hooks in California. So it's super easy for the hooks to pop out if you don't have the right tension on the line when you're fighting the fish. I feel like salmon are also quite picky in terms of how the bait looks. And so you need to get the right roll of your bait for the salmon to actually strike it. And then you got to be at the right place at the right time and get lucky. Here are the 4 lures that I've tried in the past month or so. The first one is Krippled Herring, Crippled Anchovy, Cable Baiter, and then the Apex. And so let me just go into a little detail in terms of what these are. So the Crippled Herring, this one here, it's a piece of plastic hood, the green one there that you see, and you put a piece of herring, the head, into the plastic cap, and then you go ahead and rig it up. And I can cut into a video right here to show you real quick in terms of how to do it. But what I wanted to highlight was the pros of the herring, which I find is that it's generally larger in size than an anchovy, right? And so I feel like the bigger the bait looks, it may attract the salmon, but this is just anecdotal, so don't take my word for it. It's just based on my own gut feeling. And I would say, like, I kind of struggled to get the right roll with the herring. You got to know where to place the hook. I now place the front hook, which creates the bend, way back behind the dorsal fin. I used to put it right underneath the dorsal fin, which is around halfway of the herring, but I just found that the roll of the herring wasn't attractive. It was just kind of like wobbly instead of rolling like as if it was stuck inside a 2-inch pipe. The other thing that I realized after using this rig is that you have to use like multiple toothpicks, one to secure the head of the herring into the cap, and then a second toothpick to secure the bend in the herring. So it's just one more toothpick compared to crippled anchovy. And I find that it takes me a little longer to set the crippled herring up compared to some of the other lures. And also, if you've been purchasing herring in the Bay Area, it is becoming expensive. So we're talking about $12 to $15 for a tray of them, which I think is about 10 or 12 of them. So I highly recommend that if you live in the Bay Area, take advantage of the herring spawn, which happens between January and March. I usually post a lot of stories to give you herring reports, and you can follow along to see where the herring are at, and just cast net them and get pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of them. I still have herring from the herring spawn from January, and right now we are in September, so 8 months of use, and they can be used for halibut, rockfish, and of course, salmon. Next up, crippled anchovy. This is something new that I've started to get into, mainly because I have a stockpile of herring, so why use anchovy, right? What I found with anchovy is that it's pretty easy to set up, and you only need one toothpick for securing the bend in the anchovy. Again, there's definitely a learning curve in terms of getting that perfect bait roll in the water, but just watch some other YouTube videos out there. There's some videos that show you what the perfect roll should look like. And again, anchovies, very similar pricing to herring right now. It is quite expensive, but what I've been doing is I've been just bringing a sabiki rig, and what that looks like is it just looks like some mini type of shrimp with some hooks on it, and you just jig that up and down when you're over a bait ball, and you'll get plenty of anchovy to use. And fresh anchovy, I find, is really useful and good working. And I want to thank Patrick for giving me that tip to use fresh anchovy. Cable baiter, I use this a couple of times, and what I really liked about the cable baiter is that you can use like soft bait. And what I mean by soft bait is that, maybe you forgot to brine your bait the night before, it's frozen, but then as the day progresses, it just starts to get a little mushy and soft. Well, with the cable baiter, you can still achieve a really nice roll, because the roll of the anchovy or the herring is controlled by the bend in the wire and not the fish itself, which is the case for the crippled herring and the crippled anchovy. You're sort of using a piece of hook and then bending the herring or the anchovy, and when it's soft, it just doesn't stay bent the way you want it. So with the cable baiter, you can definitely control the roll a lot better. It was kind of trial and error in finding the right elastic and nails. So I think the elastic that I got was just off of Amazon, and they were they were 30 millimeter or 3 centimeter diameter. So if you search for that on Amazon, I'm sure you'll find it. And then for the nails, I think I use a number 6, and it's a 1-inch. Apex. This is I kind of use it when I'm bored of using like crippled herring or crippled anchovy or the cable baiter. I also use it when there's a lot of croakers around, and you'll see other people on YouTube go towards the apex when that's the case. And for me personally, I've not gotten the salmon bite on this at all. It could be the color, who knows? I think that's just superstition, but comment below if you think that's the case. In terms of the trend analysis, right? Like which lure has been working for me? Well, the main lure that I've used the most times is actually crippled herring. And so I think inherently I've caught more species with it because I've used it more. I've actually hooked up on a salmon, fought the salmon on the crippled herring rig, caught croakers on it and rockfish. Crippled anchovy, I started using it a lot more. I've been getting croakers. I haven't got a salmon hit on it yet. Cable baiter, same thing, croaker. Apex, croaker as well. So right now, if you were to ask me what my confidence bait is, it would still be the crippled herring. But I think as I'm using the crippled anchovy a little more, because I feel like that's what the salmon are feeding on right now. We'll see. Hopefully I'll get a hookup on the crippled anchovy. But this is just to give you an idea of the catch ratios and the species that I've encountered. All right, so how do I look for salmon when I'm on the water? The first thing would be bait balls. So you'll typically see bait at the surface. They're like bubbling up. Usually what that means is either the bait's feeding or there's something attacking the bait from the bottom. And also you'll see it on your fish finder. It looks like big red balls. And that's the bait ball. So troll where the bait balls are, troll over them. And sometimes the bait balls are not at the surface. They could be between 15 and 20 feet. Well, or let's call it at 30 feet, there's a huge bait ball. So just make sure that your bait is at the depth that the bait ball is at, so that the salmon would attack it at that depth. Another good sign when you're out is if you see humpback whales or different types of whales breaching from the surface, and they're feeding. And so most likely the salmon are working together with the whales. Just make sure that you stay far away from, not too close to the whales. And then diving birds is also a good sign. That means, again, the birds are feeding on a bait ball, and you just want to go and troll those areas. The next part, let me just cut over to the video of me fighting a salmon. And first thing that you'll notice is if it's a salmon, majority of the time your rod will pop off the downrigger clip if you are using a downrigger. And so that's a really good sign, because that means something at the end of the line is strong enough to pop off your main line from the downrigger clip. And if it's not strong enough, then usually it's a rockfish or a croaker, and you'll just notice that your rod will just bounce like this and not like do this pop off motion. And so, once it's hooked up, make sure that you're pedaling really quick if you're on a pedal kayak, and just fight and tire it out, and take your time with the fight. Don't bring it too close to your kayak, which I did in this case. And once the salmon sort of almost looks like it's going belly up, then I've been told by other very experienced fishermen and fisherwomen that that's when the salmon is ready to be landed and netted. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to raise your rod up, go in with your net underneath the salmon, and ideally you want the salmon's head pointed into the net. So that's the way to do it. Hopefully I can execute next time when I hook up onto a salmon. So in terms of lessons learned so far, if your line or if your rod does not pop off from your downrigger, 90% of the time it's a rockfish or a croaker, because it's just not strong enough to pull your line from the downrigger clip if you are using a downrigger. Number 2 and 3, tire out the fish. That's all I heard from the experienced guys that I've talked with. And so thank you guys for giving me that advice. And I will definitely take that to heart next time I hook up on the salmon. And the other thing I realized is it's definitely worth your time to brine your bait, or to try and get fresh bait while you're out there, right before you start trolling. Bring a sabiki rig. They're super cheap and super effective in catching big fish like anchovy. Hard bait is really good for that role, or even fresh bait is good for that role, and the scales don't come off. I feel like the salmon are quite picky in terms of what the bait looks like. So I hope you guys learned some tips, and you know, I'm going to continue showing you guys my setup in my videos, and yeah, I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep trying to get a salmon before the season ends. It ends in at the end of October. So thanks for watching, guys, and make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. I also have a newsletter on howtofish.com, super easy to sign up. And a lot of people have been getting good value out of it in terms of my weekly reports on where the salmon are at, the halibut, the rockfish. And so make sure you sign up to that. Follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram at howtofish. Take care.